What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics, and we got a great one today. A top 10 of the Supremes, brought to us by our patron and longtime friend and supporter of the channel, D. Thank you, D, for this one. I am really looking forward to it. Before we get started, you guys know the drill. Give it the thumbs up, hit the subscribe. Check out our Patreon link. We do a lot of cool things, and our patrons really help keep this thing running. We so appreciate you guys. And check out our Facebook group and our Twitch for our live streams every Wednesday and Friday. All that aside, there was a lot of research on this. I'm the research guy. I really enjoyed it. Found a lot of great stuff on really almost every one of these songs. But as always, D gave a fantastic write-up on the background of the Supremes. So I'm going to just use his background because it's excellent. D says, while still in high school, Florence Ballard met Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams, who were both singing in a singing group called the Primes. She, along with her friend Mary Wilson, decided to start their own group named the Primettes. There you go. They invited their classmate Diana Ross to join. There were also others who came and went along the way. They played in small venues in the Detroit area. In 1960, Ross asked her then neighbor, Smokey Robinson, that's fantastic, lived next door to Smokey Robinson, to get the group an audition at Motown Records. Berry Gordy, of course Motown's iconic president, liked them but thought they were too young, told them to come back after graduating from high school. I mean, that makes sense. Undaunted, they continued to hang around the Motown facility at Hitsville, USA. They were allowed to contribute hand claps and occasional background vocals. Around January of 61, they were signed to a contract on the condition they changed the group name. By that time, the Primes had been combined with other musicians to form the Temptations. Oh, wow. They were given a list of names by Gordy. Over Ross's objections, Ballard chose the name The Supremes. Between 61 and 63, they released several singles with no success. They were known around Motown as the no-hit Supremes. That's kind of savage, isn't it? They just kept on continuing with background work on some songs. The lead singing duties were switched between all three. In late 63, Gordy decided that Ross was to be the permanent lead. Probably a good choice. Well, obviously a good choice in retrospect. Probably always a good choice to choose a leader. They were teamed with the songwriting team of Brian Holland, Lamont Dozier, and Eddie Holland. I'll go on those guys and talk about them in just a minute. But the first single was When the Love Light Starts Shining Through His Eyes. Went to 23 on Billboard. Then they had a string of 5 Billboard #1 hits in a row. Just a fantastic run, which I'll talk about also when we get to the songs. Motown pulled out all the stops. They were sent to an in-house finishing school. They were dressed in formal evening gowns and high-fashion wigs. They started to appear on national television shows such as Hullabaloo, The Hollywood Palace, and especially Ed Sullivan, where they had 15 appearances on that iconic show. They're one of the first black crossover acts. Until this time, black artist songs were marketed towards black audiences and then re-recorded by white artists for the white audience, not the Supremes. Their pop vocal style appealed to all audiences. There was no need to re-record them for the broader audience, and they became international stars. By the end of 1966, they had 3 more #1s, I Hear a Symphony, You Can't Hurry Love, and You Keep Me Hanging On. However, things started to change in 1967. Florence Ballard, unfortunately, was suffering from depression, started drinking heavily. She believed that Gordy was trying to push her out of the group. It didn't help when the name of the group was officially changed to Diana Ross and the Supremes. Florence started gaining weight and was unable to fit into the high-fashion gowns they performed in. She showed up late for performances, started missing some completely. In April of that year, Gordy enlisted Cindy Birdsong of Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells to replace Ballard. Ballard tried a solo career unsuccessfully. She battled alcohol and heroin addiction. She died in poverty in 1976 of a coronary thrombosis at the age of only 32. Man. Holland, Dozier, and Holland left Motown in 1968 in a dispute over money. So royalties. What a surprise, right? Getting cheated out of royalties by a record company. We've never heard of that. The quality of Supreme singles were sporadic due to a very hectic schedule and tension within the group. Many of their later recordings did not include Wilson or Birdsong. I'll talk about that as well in the top 10. Diana Ross was being groomed for a solo career, which she finally began in the spring of 1970, and obviously was quite successful with that. The Supremes carried on with Jean Terrell singing lead vocals, but they never had another #1 single. From 64 to 69, they had 12 #1 singles. Not only were they the biggest girl group, but they were third in #1s behind the Beatles and Elvis. Pretty good company, making them the biggest American group in history at that time. And then D talks about, I started all this before the loss of Mary Wilson on February 9th, which is only a couple days ago while I'm filming this. Sorry to see her go. She was one classy lady, R.E.P. And then last caveat on this, D says, I'm limiting the list to the Supremes of the 60s before Diana Ross's departure, and I'm not making any distinction between the Supremes and Diana Ross and the Supremes. What a great write-up. We're going to jump right into this. As usual, the music will not be in this video, but check out the link below if you want to follow along with me. It'll be a fun follow along if you just want to know what I think of these songs. Hang around here. I'll have the lyrics up as always. Now, I know about half of these songs, I think, just on looking at them, but I don't, the ones I think I don't know, maybe I do. I mean, I wasn't born until 71, so some of these songs obviously pop up from time to time, or there's covers of them, so I've heard them. But I don't think I've heard number 10. Love is like an itching in my heart. And a lot of these albums are compilation albums or thrown together from singles. But it's from the Supremes, A Go-Go in 1966. Dee says this is not one of their number one singles, and the lyrics are kind of silly, but I really like Ross's vocal. It goes from her typical pop sweetness to some really subtle note bending to a couple of lines where she really tears it up. This one, my research, written and produced by Motown's main production team of Holland Dozier Holland. The song was recorded in June of 65, not released until April of 66. It's one of the few singles written by the team for the Supremes that didn't reach number one on the Billboard Hot 100 Pop Singles chart in the U.S. They wrote 10 of the Supremes' 12 number one songs, by the way. Nevertheless, it was a top 10 hit, peaking at number 9. Billboard named it number 90 on their list of 100 greatest girl groups songs of all time. And a quick thing about Holland Dozier Holland, they were made up of Lamont Dozier and brothers Brian and Eddie Holland. They did a lot of songs and produced a lot of songs that kind of defined the Motown sound in the 60s, really from 62 to 67. Dozier and Brian Holland were the composers and producers for each song. Eddie wrote the lyrics and arranged the lyrics. Did some stuff for the Four Tops. Just an iconic group. So Holland Dozier Holland is now going to be known from here on in just as HDH. Let's jump into number 10. Love is like an itching in my heart. Love is like an itching in my heart. Not a ton to the lyrics, and I think we're going to probably run into that one. The lyrics aren't bad, but we have a songwriting team, an in-house label songwriting team. Their job is to write lots of songs, and a lot of times it's not for a specific artist. It was for the Supremes eventually, but they're trying to churn out songs, right? So not everything's going to be Dylan, although funny, Dylan is writing some masterpieces right during this time in 1966. But most of the songs of this time, and of the Motown sound especially, are nicely written, but they're not going to be any sort of lyrical masterpieces. It's more just about the sound, and this definitely had the sound. I think the mixing on it, which you're going to find with a lot of 60s stuff, the instrumentation was a little bit too loud. The horns were a little bit too loud. You couldn't hear Diana as well as I would have liked to through the first maybe third of the song. And then they kind of evened that out. Not really a lot to say except for the fact that the love bug bit her. Try to say that fast 8 times. And so she just keeps talking about that. Didn't mean for him to get me. Get up in the morning, I'm filled with desire. No, I can't stop the fire. Love is a real live wire. It's a burning sensation far beyond imagination. And in that chorus, love is like an itching in my heart, tearing it all apart. Just an itching in my heart. And baby, I can't scratch it. And all the things she goes through because she's been written by that love bug. She says, when you're ill, you can take a pill. When you're thirsty, drink your fill. What you going to do? Oh, yeah, when love gets a hold on you. So she's got that itching and she can't scratch it. Nice choice to start this list off. I did not know that song. And now we're up to number 9, as you can see below. Come See About Me. All the way from back in 1964, the album Where Did Our Love Go? Dee says this one proved that they were really here to stay. It's their third number one. I got a little bit to add to that. It's third of 5 consecutive number ones in the U.S. It topped the chart twice non-consecutively, being toppled by and later replacing the Beatles' I Feel Fine in December of 64 and January of 65. Not the last time that the Supremes and the Beatles will battle on this list. I also found it was written, of course, by HDH. The Supremes, while being the first to record the song, were not the first to issue it as a single. That fell to Nella Dodds, and her version started selling, climbing to 74 on the Billboard Hot 100. Motown quickly released the Supremes version as a single, which killed the sales of Nella Dodds' version. The group made their first of, this says 17 appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show, performing this single on Sunday, December 27th, 1964. So this is the one they went on first on Ed Sullivan. They also recorded a German version, which they have several other songs that recorded German versions of the song entitled Johnny and Joe. And this little tidbit with Nella Dodds, that's the way it was done in the 60s, boys and girls. You know, the Byrds did this with Dylan. It was a race. It didn't matter who wrote it, even if they were an artist who recorded it. It's like, who can get this out first? Surely I know this song, but I don't recognize this one either. Come See About Me, number 9. Come See About Me. Come on, man. Go see about Diana, man. She is broken up and you have left her. That's the basic thing of the song. Just, you know, the traditional sound. We got the horns coming in there, the great harmonies. You know, she starts out, I've been crying because I'm so lonely. Smiles have all turned, but tears won't wash away the fears. And then that pre-chorus that you're never going to return to ease that fire that within me burns. And then the chorus, it keeps me crying, baby, for you, keeps me sighing, baby, for you. So once you hurry, come on, boy, see about me, see about your baby. And she just goes on. She gave up her friends. They're all gone. Now he's gone. He's not going to come back to her. She's like, please come back. That's kind of what she's saying throughout the whole thing. The outro, you know I'm lonely. I love you only. See about your baby. Hurry, hurry. She's begging him. Look, I don't have anything left. I gave up everything for you. Now you've left, and I have no peace without you. A nice little tune, and screams 1964 in a really great and nice way. Now we're up to number 8, Reflections, the title track to that album, Reflections, in 1968. Dee said if the Supremes ever got psychedelic, this was it. First Supreme single released under that Diana Ross and the Supremes. It's among their last hits singles to be written and produced by HDH. 2 in the US, 5 in the UK, and I found the psychedelic influence is apparent in the song's arrangement, although it is sometimes cited as one of the first pop mainstream recordings to feature the Moog synthesizer. The unusual sounds on the track were actually generated on a test oscillator and treated with effects. So let's check this one out. Reflections at number 8. The first one I knew the part that comes in where they really go after it. I don't know that I've heard the song a lot or anything. And I don't know what I think of it. I think I like it. I don't know. Interesting instrumentation, different, which, you know, you want to evolve. You don't want every song to sound the same. And this is 67 when it was written, 68 when it hit. Lamont Dozier, who wrote the song, said this about it, which might lend a little knowledge into what it's about. When we started out at Motown, there was so much promise. Miracles were realized, love was good, but then it went bad. Disenchantment spoiled the dream. Memories are now all that's left. We tried so many unique instrumental and vocal sounds to express what we were all feeling. Reflections is one of those songs that cries out loud, what if? And then a flood of wishing and hoping and should-haves and could-haves began to fill the mind that wonders and wonders what went wrong at such a magical time. But still the songs live on. It's the beauty of music, man. There is no escaping it. Love is always like that. And that's the reflection here. Diana, very good vocal performance here, as you would expect. Talking about the mirror of her mind. Time after time, I see reflections of you and me. So it's over, the way it used to be. So you can see it for the lover, but then once Lamont writes this, you can see it of the relationship of the way the Motown family was all together at one time. Oh, I'm alone now, no love to shield me, trapped in a world that's a distorted reality. Happiness you took from me and left me alone, with only memories. So, really good songwriting, this one. A little more advanced songwriting, 68. Andy's writing for a purpose, right? Because things aren't going so great. We talk about it all the time on the channel. That usually in times of despair or difficulty, the best stuff is written and produced, and this one was definitely a strong one. Now we're up to number 7, Baby Love, from the Where Did Our Love Go album in 1964. Dee says this was their second number 1 single. They weren't going to be just a flash in the pan. And then I found, of course, it was written and produced by HDH. Topped the US and UK charts concurrently. Beginning with Baby Love, the Supremes became the first Motown act to have more than one American number 1 single, and by the end of the decade they would have more number 1 singles than any other Motown act or American pop music group with 12, a record they continue to hold, nominated for the 65 Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Recording, 324 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 Songs of All Time. And the way this one worked, at the insistence of Berry Gordy, hoping for a follow-up chart topper, HDH produced Baby Love to sound like Where Did Our Love Go? Elements were reincorporated into the single, such as Diana Ross's cooing lead vocal and oohing, Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson's Baby Baby backup, the Funk Brothers instrumental track, and teenager Mike Valvano's foot stomping. Right? If you have a sound that is recognizable, you just try to recreate it, especially if it's 1960s rock music. The iconic Baby Love, you definitely, I mentioned it during the reaction, there is a formula here, right? Diana sings for a little bit, then the horns come in, then the harmonies come in, and although they didn't write their own songs, so when artists don't write their own songs, sometimes you suffer from consistency of sound, but they're in an interesting situation, right? Because I told you earlier, 10 of their 12 number one songs, Lamont Dozier actually wrote. So it's the same songwriter, even though it's not the artist. So you have sort of a consistency there. Lamont actually says about this song, he says it was about my first love who I never really got over. She stimulated me to write many of the songs I eventually wrote throughout my career. And that is the pattern. And you kind of notice that once you understand that quote from Lamont, because the song so far, it's not about I'm so in love with you. It's about you left, man. Where are you at? So she's heartbroken again. My baby love, I need you. Oh, how I need you. But all you do is treat me bad, break my heart, and leave me sad. Tell me, what did I do wrong to make you stay away so long? She's telling him how she's missing him, how she needs him. Why must we be separate, my love? All of my life through, I never loved no one but you. Why do you do me like you do? I get this need, oh baby love. And she goes on. So it's all about, hey, you're gone. When are you coming back? My heart is broken. It's not the first song on this list, and it won't be the last to have that same theme, but a great one, an iconic one. Almost to the halfway mark already. We are up to Love Child, deemed as you see below to Diana Ross and the Supremes. From the album Love Child in 1968, I'm almost positive about it on this song. Dee says, with this song, they were joining other Motown artists with more socially conscious lyrics. And I have some stuff on this one, a lot of research. Number one in the U.S., it's a single that finally knocked the Beatles' Hey Jude from the top spot after it was there for 9 weeks. In 1967, Diana Ross and the Supremes, as I told you, dropped Florence Ballard, adding Cindy Birdsong, and added Diana's name to the billing. Following the string of changes, the Supremes had mixed success on the pop charts. Even though Diana Ross is still there, she's still singing lead. Rock music and music in general plays this out, right? If you make any sort of changes, usually you don't have the same amount of success. It's just one of those things. People don't like change. So the history of that is Reflections peaked at number 2 and In and Out of Love peaked at number 9, but their next two singles did not make the top 20. This prompted Motown label chief Berry Gordy to hold a special meeting with a group of writers who named themselves The Clan. So this one is not by HDH, and set them to work on a hit single for Diana Ross and the Supremes. Instead of composing another love-based song, the team decided to craft a tune about a woman who is asking her boyfriend not to pressure her into sleeping with him, for they fear they would conceive a love child. The woman, portrayed on the record obviously by Diana, is herself a love child, and besides not having a father at home, she had to endure wearing rags to school and growing up in an old, cold, rundown tenement slum. As was nearly always the case on singles, this was fascinating to me. Under the Diana Ross and the Supremes name, Supreme members Mary Wilson and Cindy Birdsong do not perform on the record. Instead, session singers, the Adantes, perform the background vocals. All lead vocals are by Diana, who would soon leave the group for the solo career. So once they became Diana Ross and the Supremes weren't even on the recordings. Went to number 1, became their third biggest selling Supreme single behind Baby Love and Someday We'll Be Together. So maybe I will know it once I hear it, but let's check out Love Child. Love Child. The first song that sounds completely different. Guitar dominates in this one. And, it should sound different because of the story I told. They were really trying to craft a song very well put together. Diana sounds great. Lots of lyrics. The harmonies in there and almost the call and response and underlying stuff is a lot different than previous stuff. Doesn't sound anything like any of the Supremes hits we've heard so far. Really enjoyed that one. She's basically telling a story and awfully serious lyrics for 1968. I wonder what people thought of this one at the time. But she's telling me, you think I don't feel love, but what I feel for you is real love. In those eyes I see reflected a hurt, scorned, rejected. Then the hook, love child never meant to be, love child born in poverty, love child never meant to be, love child take a look at me. And she talks about she started out that way. My father left, he never even married mom. I shared the guilt my mama knew. So afraid that others knew I had no name. Boy, she is not going to let this happen with a child of her own before she's married. She said this love we're contemplating is worth the pain of waiting. We'll only end up hating the child we may be creating. Love child never meant to be. And we get in that whole hook. a really, really good song. Nicely done. And, they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. Their third biggest selling single ever. Now we're already to the top 5. Back in My Arms Again, off more hits by the Supremes in 1965. Dee says this is the last in their string of 5 number 1 singles in a row, which I talked about earlier. I found it went to number 1 in the U.S., of course, written by HDH. The song's middle 8 is almost identical to a later HDH hit, the Isley Brothers' This Old Heart of Mine, which is also a fantastic song. Let's check out Back in My Arms Again. Back in My Arms Again at number 5. Back to that iconic Supreme sound, and I would even say Motown sound. But, we have that drum going through, got the horns coming in, the harmonizing coming in. You could hear Diana better than on some of the earlier stuff, but it still wasn't mixed all the way to the front. The vocals weren't like they were on the last song where her voice is the one showcased, but it has that wonderful sound that you just kind of sing along to. And Back in My Arms Again, she's saying, I'm not going to listen to my friend's advice. I guess she must have listened to him and maybe almost lost the boy. They keep calling her and telling her, he's going to give you a heartbreak. We weren't texting people then. You actually had to call on the landline, be by your phone and answering it. And she says, you know what? I'm the one that needs him. I don't care what anybody else says. I'm so happy and satisfied because he's back in my arms again. I'm not going to listen to anybody's advice again. Kind of dangerous to just go with your own heart all the time. But hey, I guess it worked for Diana here. Now we're going to go to number 4. And as you see below, it's the iconic Where Did Our Love Go from the album of the same name in 1964. Dee says this is their first number 1 single and the end of the nickname, the No-Hit Supremes I talked about at the start. Written and produced by HDH, 475 on the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. Number 4 on Billboard's list of the 100 greatest girl group songs of all time. According to Brian Holland, this song was written with the Supremes in mind, though Supremes member Mary Wilson would later write that the song had been originally given to the Marvelettes. Holland would deny this, as would the Marvelettes themselves. Initially, the producers argued over who should sing the song, as it had been cut in the same key as Mary Wilson's voice, but since Berry Gordy had already assigned, remember, in 1963, the lead singer role to Diana Ross, the producers eventually gave the song to her. She sang it in her usual high register in the recording studio. As a result, she had to go back into the studio, re-record it in the lower register that was insisted upon by HDH and their to-the-letter formula, do it like we say. The song was also transmitted to astronauts orbiting the Earth in August of 1965 during the Gemini 5 mission. Well, we're revisiting the theme of we were together and now you left me. She even says, before you won my heart, you were a perfect guy, but now that you got me, you want to leave me behind. That thrill of the chase, right? Men do it. Women do it too, but men do it more often. They pursue the girl once they get her. It's like, end of challenge. I'm moving on. The formula, I mentioned it during the song. The Formula Works is a fantastic song, right? But the singing, the harmony, the horn solo, it's all here, and it's one of the most iconic songs you're going to hear. Like when you hear the start of this, you know exactly what it is. Great choice for number 4. Well, speaking of iconic songs, number 3, as you see, Stop in the Name of Love from the 1965 album. More hits by the Supremes. Dee said this created quite a stir for the song title. People who had not noticed them before started taking notice. Of course, it was written and produced by HDH. Number 1 in the U.S., Billboard 38 on their list of 100 greatest girl group songs of all time, and nominated for the 1966 Grammy Award for Best Contemporary Rock and Roll Group Vocal Performance. Stop in the Name of Love. Stop in the Name of Love. And I'll tell you what, man, Diana is understanding, right? Because the premise of the song is that her man is getting with another woman, and she's like begging him not to do that, to think it over, right? Stay with me. Stop in the name of love. Don't go be with her again. Verse 5, though, I tried so hard to be patient, hoping you'll stop this infatuation. But each time you were together, I'm afraid of losing you forever. So this is going on and on. Lamont Dozier, who of course wrote the song, gives a little interesting insight into it. He said, I was in a relationship with this girl who caught me being unfaithful to her, which resulted in a tremendous argument. I would think so, Lamont. I tried to diffuse her fury with what I thought was a little humor, but it just made things worse by saying, baby, please stop in the name of love before you break my heart. She still wanted to break up with me, and I said, think it over. The next thing I knew, the song was born, and a few weeks later, she came back to me when the song was number 1. She started telling all of her friends, I wrote the song about us. I don't know that I would tell my friends that, but hey. So iconic song again. I mean, that's kind of what you get at the top of the list of these like classic artists. Great choice here. Now we're on to number 2. You Keep Me Hanging On. From the album The Supremes, sing Holland, Dozier, Holland, 1967. Dee says perhaps their hardest rocker. It is a unusual sound for them. Of course, written by HDH, number 1 in the U.S. American rock band Vanilla Fudge released a cover version the following year, which reached number 6 in the U.S. An English singer, Kim Wilde, covered it, reaching number 1 in 1987. We actually have a song battle up of The Supremes versus Vanilla Fudge on the channel you might want to check out later of this song. The song's signature guitar part is said to have originated from a Morse code-like radio sound effect typically used before a news announcement, heard by Lamont Dozier. Many elements of the recording, including the guitars, the drums, and Diana Ross's vocals, were multi-tracked, a production technique which was established and popularized concurrently by HDH and other premier producers of the 60s, such as, of course, Phil Spector, his Wall of Sound, and the great George Martin. 339 on the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. You Keep Me Hanging On. What a fantastic song. And I shared this in the song battle way back when Trey and I shot the song battle with Vanilla Fudge. But I actually knew the Kim Wilde version before any of the others because it was 1986, 87, my teen years. This is just a great song. A little weightier lyricism, I would say, than just Please Come Back to Me. It's like, why do you keep me hanging on? He wants her out of the life, right? Out of his life, but he wants to still be friends because he wants to kind of keep her hanging on. Yeah, we've all been in those relationships, right? Or almost all of us. I hope you have. Most of us have, where you really care about that person. They kind of let you go, but then they kind of keep giving you these signals as you're almost away from them of like, maybe there's hope. And she's saying, why don't you just set me free? Why do you keep me hanging on? That one is probably going to end up in my favorites. Just give a little spoiler alert. And now we're to number 1, and you see it below. I Hear a Symphony. I don't know that I know this song, right? Surely I do. Dee picked it at number 1, but it's from the same album, I Hear a Symphony, 1966. Dee says there are more key changes in this song than any other I can remember. It really got to my 13-year-old heart. Written and produced by HDH. You see the theme here. Number 1 in the U.S., the background string arrangement can be attributed to the great arranger Belford Hendricks, who also wrote arrangements for hit songs recorded by Mary Wells, Teddy Pendergrass, James Brown, the Four Tops, Jackie Wilson, and many other stars. In mid-65, HDH came to realize they'd fallen into a rut when the Supremes' Nothing But Heartaches failed to make it to the top 10, missing it by just one position and breaking the string of number 1s Supremes hits initiated with Where Did Our Love Go? Motown chief, here he comes again, Berry Gordy, was displeased with the performance of Nothing But Heartaches and circulated a memo around the Motown offices that read as follows: we will release nothing less than top 10 product on any artist, and because the Supremes' worldwide acceptance is greater than the other artists, on them, we will only release number 1 records. Barry is just running this thing like a tyrant, man. They're going to be number 1 songs. HDH therefore set about breaking their formula and trying something new. The result was this song, I Hear a Symphony, a song with a more complex musical structure than previous Supreme releases. Stevie Wonder also recorded this song in 1966, as did the Isley Brothers. Michael Jackson recorded it with the Jackson 5 in 1970. Let's do this. Number 1, I Hear a Symphony. I Hear a Symphony, Dee's number 1 Supreme song. Really nice choice here. Definitely different sounding instrumentally. Lamont talked about how he wrote this song. He said, I used to go to the movies a lot and especially love to watch musicals. As I would watch two people get together on the screen and begin to fall in love, the music just seemed to come out of nowhere the moment they were near each other. Being in love with love, I wanted to express the chemistry that two people in love feel whenever they're near each other. So I started to sing Whenever You're Near, I Hear a Symphony. Sat down with Brian and came up with one of my favorite songs still today at the time of that interview. And that's basically what Diane is singing about here. Whenever they're together, whenever you're near, I hear a symphony, a tender melody, pulling me closer to your arms. And suddenly I hear a symphony. You know, they're kissing. I'm lost in a world made for you and me. And she just keeps going on about that, whispering how much, as you stand holding me, whispering how much you care. 1,000 violins fill the air now, baby, baby. Don't let this moment end. So really, this one really is a love fest compared to a lot of the other songs and a very nice choice at number 1 because it is different. Now we're to the point where I pick my favorite tracks. Honorable mentions. We're going to go Reflections, Love Child, Stop in the Name of Love, and I Hear a Symphony. I know that's 4. So now my 3 favorites. You Keep Me Hanging On, Baby Love, Where Did Our Love Go? So it's really hard on these lists, right? I Hear a Symphony I like. I've never heard this song. So it's really hard on these lists. So many of these songs are so familiar to me on the Supremes. They have such a great sound and just a great list brought to us by D. We don't have enough Motown stuff up. We have a Stevie up and a Marvin, but that's really about it. Some song battles, but not intentionally. We really want to get to it, just haven't had time to. So thank you for bringing us this fantastic list. Thank you, everybody, for watching along, and I will see you next time.